I never expected my 28th birthday to end with my sister trying to have me thrown out of a country club. Then again, I'd stopped expecting anything normal from my family years ago. The Madison Estate Country Club sat on 40 acres of pristine Connecticut coastline, its white columned facade gleaming in the afternoon sun. I'd arrived wearing comfortable jeans and a simple cotton blouse, having driven straight from my apartment in the city. My sister Claire had texted me that morning, "Family lunch at the club, 1 p.m. Don't be late." No mention it was a formal event. No warning about dress codes. Just another setup. I should have known better. Claire stood near the entrance in a designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, her highlighted hair perfectly styled, her jewelry catching the light. Mom was beside her in head-to-toe Chanel, holding court with several other women who looked like they'd stepped out of a luxury magazine spread. "There you are," Claire said when she spotted me, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "We've been waiting." The way she emphasized, "we" made it clear I was the problem, not her vague text message. "Sorry," I said easily. Traffic was bad coming from the city. "The city," Mom repeated with a slight sniff. "Still living in that tiny apartment?" "It works for me." Claire's friends had turned to stare, their eyes traveling over my casual outfit with barely concealed disdain. I recognized the look. I'd seen it my entire life from this particular social circle. "Well," Claire said brightly, "shall we go in? I'm absolutely starving." We walked through the grand entrance, my sneakers squeaking slightly on the marble floors. The country club was everything you'd expect. Soaring ceilings, crystal chandeliers, oil paintings of long-dead members. Old money attempting to preserve itself in architectural form. "The Thompson party," Claire announced to the hostess with the air of someone who expected to be recognized. "Of course, Miss Thompson. Right this way." We were led to a table near the windows overlooking the golf course. Beautiful view. Perfect setting. And I was dressed like I'd just come from running errands. Which, to be fair, I had. "So," Mom said once we were seated, not bothering to look at me as she perused the wine list. "Claire has some exciting news." "Do tell," I said, genuinely curious. Claire practically glowed. "Richard proposed." "Congratulations," I said warmly. "That's wonderful. We're having the engagement party here next month," she continued, gesturing around the room. "And the wedding will be here too, of course. This club is perfect. Very exclusive. Very." She paused, her eyes landing on my outfit. "Refined." "It's a beautiful venue," I agreed. "Yes, well, we're very fortunate to have memberships here," Mom said. "Your father's business connections made it possible, though Claire and Richard's status certainly helps maintain our standing." The implication was clear. I contributed nothing to the family's social position. "Richard's family has been members for 3 generations," Claire added. "His grandfather was on the board of directors." "Impressive," I said, meaning it. "Unlike some people," Mom said pointedly, "who can't even manage to dress appropriately for a family lunch." I took a sip of water. "You said family lunch. You didn't mention it was formal." "Any lunch at the Madison estate is formal, dear. One would think that's obvious." Our waiter arrived, saving me from having to respond. We ordered. Claire chose the lobster, Mom the Dover sole, I went with the chicken salad, and then the real performance began. "We're planning the engagement party for 60 guests," Claire announced. "All the right people, naturally. Richard's business partners, our closest friends, family." "Sounds lovely," I said. "Of course, we'll need to be selective about the guest list," Mom interjected. "The club has standards. We can't just invite anyone." I knew where this was heading. "Which reminds me," Claire said, her voice taking on an apologetic tone that didn't quite reach her eyes. "About the engagement party. We're really trying to keep it intimate. Just our inner circle." "I understand," I said calmly. "Do you?" Mom asked. "Because last time we had a family event you showed up looking like this." "That was Thanksgiving," I reminded her. "At your house. You said casual." "Casual doesn't mean impoverished," Claire said with a little laugh, gesturing at my outfit. "Honestly, Emily, you're 28 years old. When are you going to get your life together?" "My life is together," I said evenly. "Living in a studio apartment, working at..." Mom trailed off with a vague wave of her hand. "Whatever it is you do with computers. Data analysis." "Yes, that." She said it like I'd admitted to working at a fast food restaurant. The point is, dear, you're not exactly where we hoped you'd be at this age. Claire was already engaged to Richard at 26, and look at her now. A beautiful home in Greenwich, a successful fiancé, memberships at all the right clubs. I'm happy for Claire, I said honestly. But not ambitious for yourself, Mom finished. It's disappointing, Emily. Your father would be disappointed too. Bringing up my father, who'd passed away 3 years ago, was a low blow. But it was Mom's specialty. I think Dad would be proud of me, I said quietly. For what? Claire asked with genuine curiosity. What have you actually accomplished? I could have told them right then. Could have explained exactly what I'd been building for the past 6 years. Could have shown them the documents in my bag that proved just how accomplished I actually was. But I'd learned something valuable about my family. They never listened. They'd already decided who I was, and no amount of evidence would change their minds. At least, not evidence presented by me. I'm doing fine, I said instead. Our food arrived, and for a few minutes we ate in relative silence. Then Claire's phone buzzed and she squealed with delight. Oh my God, Mom, look. The Hendersons can make the engagement party. And they're bringing the Vanderbilts. Wonderful, Mom said, beaming. This is going to be the event of the season. We'll need to upgrade the menu, Claire mused. Maybe the filet mignon instead of the salmon. And champagne, obviously. The good stuff. Spare no expense, Mom agreed. This is a celebration of Claire's future. I continued eating my salad, letting their planning wash over me. I'd become quite good at tuning out these conversations over the years. Of course, we'll need to be careful about the seating arrangements, Claire said, pulling out her phone to make notes. The Vanderbilts can't sit with the Prescotts. You know they're in that legal dispute. And Richard's mother will want to be near the windows. What about family seating? Mom asked. Oh well, Richard's parents at the head table with us, obviously. His siblings at table 2 with their spouses. Uncle James and Aunt Patricia at table 3. I waited, but my name never came up. Where should we put Emily? Mom finally asked, her tone suggesting she'd rather not put me anywhere at all. Claire looked up from her phone, her expression one of carefully constructed sympathy. Actually, Mom, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. Here it comes, I thought. The thing is, Claire continued, with limited space and so many important guests, I'm not sure we can accommodate everyone we'd like to invite. You're not inviting your own sister to your engagement party? I asked calmly. It's not that simple, Claire said quickly. It's just, this is a very important event for Richard's career. His business partners will be there, potential clients, people from his firm. We need to make the right impression. And I would make the wrong impression, I finished for her. Don't be dramatic, Mom said. Claire is simply being practical. This party could lead to important connections for Richard. We can't have. She gestured at me again. This being your daughter, I said. This being someone who can't be bothered to dress appropriately or maintain proper social standards, Mom corrected. Really, Emily, look at yourself. You're at one of the most exclusive country clubs in Connecticut wearing jeans and sneakers. You haven't made any effort to fit in with our social circle. You work some computer job that no one understands, you live in a tiny apartment in the city, you drive that horrible old Honda. It's reliable, I said. It's embarrassing, Claire snapped. Do you know what Richard's mother said when she saw you get out of it at Christmas? She asked if you were the hired help. Did you correct her? Eventually, Claire said. But the damage was done. She thinks our family is struggling. I almost laughed. Almost. So, the solution is to not invite me to family events? I asked. Just this one, Claire said quickly. Just the engagement party. You can still come to the wedding, obviously. We'll seat you in the back somewhere. How generous, I said dryly. Don't be like that, Mom said. We're trying to help you understand how the world works. Appearances matter. Connections matter. You can't just show up looking like you don't care and expect people to take you seriously. I never said I didn't care, I pointed out. Then why do you dress like this? Claire demanded, her voice rising slightly. Other diners were starting to glance our way. Why do you insist on living in the city instead of somewhere respectable? Why do you work at some no-name company doing God knows what? I like my job, I said simply. You could like it somewhere better, Mom said. Somewhere that would impress people. Claire's fiancé works at Whitmore and Associates. Very prestigious. Very well connected. They have connections too. I know who they have connections to, I interrupted gently. Then you understand why this engagement party is so important, Mom said. Why we can't have any complications. Complications. That's what I'd been reduced to. I understand perfectly, I said. Good, Claire said, visibly relaxing. I knew you'd be reasonable about this. And really, you'll probably be more comfortable not coming. These events can be so boring, all that small talk with people you don't know. I know most of them, I said quietly. You know of them, Mom corrected. That's different from actually being part of their circle. Which you're not. The waiter came to clear our plates and offer dessert menus. Mom and Claire ordered the crème brûlée. I declined. Now, Claire said, pulling up something on her phone, let me show you my ideas for the table settings. I'm thinking white roses and gold accents. She launched into an elaborate description of her party plans while Mom nodded approvingly and offered suggestions. I sat quietly, my water glass leaving a ring of condensation on the white tablecloth. This was how it always went. Me sitting on the sidelines while Claire and Mom discussed Claire's perfect life, Claire's perfect plans, Claire's perfect future. I'd long ago stopped trying to participate in these conversations. They didn't want my input. They wanted an audience, someone to witness and validate Claire's success. The fact that I was the sister being excluded was just a bonus. And the photographer Richard hired has shot weddings for 3 governors, Claire was saying. He's incredibly expensive but worth it for the publicity shots. Publicity? I asked despite myself. Well, yes, Claire said as if it were obvious. Richard's law firm is very prominent. Our engagement will likely be mentioned in the society pages. We need professional quality photos. Of course, I murmured. Which is another reason we need to be selective about who appears in them, Mom added pointedly. We'd moved past subtle and straight into blatant. The waiter brought their desserts, and they discussed the wedding plans between bites of crème brûlée. Venue capacity, invitation wording, honeymoon destinations. All the details of a wedding I apparently wouldn't be welcome at. Finally, lunch wound down. Mom requested the check, made a show of reviewing it carefully, and then pulled out her credit card with a flourish. High treat, she announced. A celebration of Claire's engagement. Thanks, Mom, Claire said, kissing her cheek. Emily, Mom said as we stood to leave, perhaps next time we have a family meal, you could make an effort with your appearance. For Claire's sake, if not your own. I'll keep that in mind, I said neutrally. We walked toward the exit, Mom and Claire chatting animatedly about wedding dress shopping next week. I followed a few steps behind, the invisible sister. We were almost to the entrance when Claire stopped suddenly. Oh, she said brightly. There's Melissa Harrison. I have to say hello, she's on the wedding invite list. She hurried over to a woman in tennis whites, leaving Mom and me standing near the marble fountain in the foyer. Emily, Mom said quietly, turning to face me. I hope you understand we're not trying to be cruel. We're trying to protect Claire's future. This marriage is important for our family's standing. I understand, I said. Do you? Because sometimes I wonder if you really grasp how serious this is. Richard comes from old money. Real money. His connections could open doors for all of us. But only if we present the right image. And I'm not the right image, I said flatly. Not currently, no, Mom admitted. But it doesn't have to be this way. If you just make an effort, better clothes, a more impressive job, perhaps meet someone from a good family, things could be different. I'm happy with my life, I said. That's because you don't know what you're missing, Mom said with something almost like pity. You've settled for so little that you think it's enough. But Emily, you could be so much more if you'd just try. Before I could respond, Claire returned, flushed with excitement. Melissa's coming to the party, she announced. And she's bringing her husband who just made partner at his firm. Richard will be thrilled, they could really use those connections. Wonderful, dear, Mom said warmly. We continued toward the exit, but as we approached the doors, Claire suddenly grabbed my arm. Actually, she said, her voice taking on a new edge, I just realized something. What? I asked. You can't leave through the main entrance dressed like that, she said, gesturing at my outfit. People might think you're, well, not a member. Claire, I said quietly, I am a member. You. She laughed. Emily, do you have any idea what membership costs here? It's $150,000 initiation fee alone, plus $15,000 annual dues. You can barely afford your studio apartment. She's right, Mom said. It's embarrassing enough that you showed up looking like this. Let's not compound it by having you exit through the main doors. Use the side entrance. I stared at them both. You want me to leave through the service entrance? Just this once, Claire said. Please? I don't want anyone to see you and think. Think what? I asked, my voice still calm. That we're. Claire trailed off, searching for the right word. Poor, Mom supplied bluntly. If people see you dressed like that leaving through the main entrance, they'll assume we're not actually the kind of members who belong here. A small crowd had started to gather in the foyer. I recognized several faces. Other members, club staff, people who moved in the same social circles as my family. Perfect. I'm not leaving through the service entrance, I said clearly. Emily, Claire hissed, glancing around nervously. Don't make a scene. I'm not making a scene, I said. I'm leaving through the front door like any other member. Any other member wouldn't be dressed like a vagrant, Mom said sharply. That's when Claire made her mistake. She turned to the security guard standing near the entrance, a professional-looking man in his 50s with a club security badge. Excuse me, she said in her most authoritative voice. Could you please remove this poorly dressed person? She's embarrassing us. The security guard looked at me, then at Claire, confusion crossing his face. Ma'am, She doesn't belong here, Claire continued, her voice getting louder. More people were stopping to watch now. Look at her. She's clearly not member material. We can't have people like this wandering around the club. Claire, I said quietly, don't do this. Why not? She demanded, turning on me. You're making us look bad. You're always making us look bad. For once, could you just accept that you don't belong in places like this? Mom nodded her agreement. The security guard is just doing his job, Emily. Perhaps if you dressed appropriately, this wouldn't be necessary. The security guard looked deeply uncomfortable now. Ladies, I'm not sure. Remove her, Claire insisted. Immediately. I'm a member here and I'm requesting that this person be escorted out. The foyer had gone quiet. 20 or so people were watching now, their country club lunch interrupted by unexpected drama. I stood calmly waiting. That's when David Morrison appeared. David was the club's director, a distinguished man in his 60s who'd managed the Madison estate for over 20 years. He'd clearly been summoned by someone who recognized that this situation was escalating beyond a simple security matter. What seems to be the problem? He asked smoothly, his voice trained to diffuse conflicts among the wealthy. Finally, Claire said. Mr. Morrison, thank goodness. This person, she gestured at me, needs to be removed from the premises. She's not dressed appropriately and she's causing a disturbance. David looked at me and I saw recognition flash in his eyes. Then something else. Alarm. Miss Thompson, he said carefully, is there a problem? This is Miss Thompson, Claire said impatiently, pointing at herself. I'm Claire Thompson and this is my mother, Patricia Thompson. We're members here. This, she gestured at me again, is my sister who is not a member and needs to leave. David's expression didn't change, but I saw his shoulders tense. I see, he said slowly. And you're asking me to have your sister removed from the club? Yes, Claire said. Immediately. Before she embarrasses us further. She's dressed like a homeless person, Mom added. It's completely inappropriate. Surely you can see that. David turned to me and in his eyes I saw a question. I gave him the slightest nod. Miss Thompson, he said, and there was a new quality to his voice now. Formal. Professional. Shall we revoke their memberships? The foyer went completely silent. Claire's face went blank with confusion. What? I said, David repeated calmly. Shall we revoke their memberships? Mrs. Patricia Thompson and Ms. Claire Thompson, according to our records, are sponsored members under the primary membership. What are you talking about? Claire demanded. We've been members here for years. My father. Your father's membership was transferred 5 years ago, David said, pulling out his phone and scrolling through something. Upon his passing, the primary membership and all associated accounts were transferred to the designated heir in his will. Mom had gone pale. That's impossible. I have the membership card. I've been paying the dues. You've been using the membership privileges, David corrected. But the primary membership belongs to someone else. Someone who has been covering all costs associated with this club for the past 5 years, including your dues, your dining charges, your guest privileges, and your access to all facilities. The crowd was pressing closer now, people pulling out their phones. Who? Claire whispered, though I could see in her eyes that she was starting to understand. David turned to me with a respectful nod. Miss Emily Thompson has been the primary member since 2019. She owns the membership that you've been using. And actually, he scrolled through his phone again, she owns quite a bit more than that. What do you mean? Mom asked faintly. The Madison Estate Country Club was purchased by Thompson Holdings LLC 3 years ago, David explained. Miss Emily Thompson is the sole owner of Thompson Holdings. Which means, Mrs. Thompson, that your daughter doesn't just own the membership you've been using. She owns the entire club. The silence was deafening. Claire's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Mom gripped the back of a nearby chair as if she might fall over. That's impossible, Claire finally managed. Emily is. She's a data analyst. She lives in a studio apartment. She drives a Honda. Miss Thompson maintains a private residence in the city, David said carefully. But she also owns 3 properties in Connecticut, including the estate where this club is located. As for her vehicle choices, that's a personal preference. The entire club? Mom whispered. 40 acres, the main building, all facilities and the adjacent golf course, David confirmed. Purchased in 2021 for $47 million. The transaction was handled very quietly, as Miss Thompson preferred to maintain her privacy. I'd stayed silent through all of this, watching my family's faces as their entire understanding of reality crumbled. Emily. Claire turned to me, her voice small. Is this true? Yes, I said simply. But, how? Why didn't you tell us? You never asked, I said quietly. You assumed. You decided I was a failure, that I hadn't accomplished anything, that I was an embarrassment to the family. Nothing I said would have changed your minds, so I stopped trying. But the apartment, Mom said weakly. The job. The car. I like my apartment. It's a convenient location for work. The job is actually the data analysis firm I founded 6 years ago. We handle financial modeling for investment firms. And the Honda is reliable. I don't need to impress anyone with my car. 6 years ago, Claire repeated. You've been successful for 6 years and you never told us? I tried, I said. Remember when I invited you to my company's launch party? You said you were too busy. When I mentioned I'd bought a property in Connecticut, you assumed I meant a condo and made jokes about my starter home. When Dad died and left me the club membership, you thought it was a pity gesture because I couldn't afford my own. The truth was settling over them now, cold and undeniable. Every time you've complained about paying dues here, I continued, my voice still calm, I was actually paying them. Every meal you've charged to the membership, every guest you've brought, every club event you've attended, I was covering all of it. I've been covering all of it for 5 years. Why? Mom asked, and she actually sounded hurt. If you could afford all this, why live the way you do? Why let us think? Because I wanted to see if you loved me, I said quietly. The real me. Not the version you wanted me to be, not someone who impressed your friends, just me. And I got my answer. Claire was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Emily, You tried to have me thrown out, I said not unkindly. You told security to remove me because I embarrassed you. You uninvited me from your engagement party because I didn't fit your image. And Mom, you told me Dad would be disappointed in me. I didn't mean. Yes, you did, I interrupted gently. You meant every word. Because to you I was a failure. Someone who settled for less, who didn't try hard enough, who wasn't good enough for your social circle. David was still standing there, professional as always, but I could see sympathy in his eyes. Miss Thompson, he said carefully, your instructions? This was it. The moment where I could revoke their memberships, ban them from the club, cut them off from the social circle they valued so highly. The ultimate revenge. But as I looked at my mother's pale face and my sister's tears, I felt nothing but tired. Their memberships continue, I said. For now. But I want it noted in the records that they are sponsored members only. They have no authority to make decisions about club policy, membership, or guest access. And they certainly don't have authority to have anyone removed from the premises. Understood, David said with a slight bow. I'll update the records immediately. Wait, Claire said desperately. Emily, please. I'm sorry. We're sorry. We didn't know. You didn't care, I corrected. That's different. You didn't care who I actually was or what I'd accomplished. You only cared about how I made you look. The engagement party, Claire said quickly. You'll come, right? Please? I'll seat you at the head table. I'll tell everyone. I don't want you to tell everyone anything, I said. I came here today for a family lunch because, despite everything, I still hoped we could just be family. But you made it clear that's not possible unless I fit your requirements. That's not fair, Mom protested weakly. Isn't it? I asked. When was the last time you asked about my life without judgment? When did you last show interest in my work, my home, my choices without criticizing them? When did you treat me like someone worth knowing instead of someone to be managed? They had no answer. The club is yours to use, I continued. I'm not going to take that away from you. But I'm done pretending to be less than I am so you can feel superior. I'm done apologizing for not meeting standards you never bothered to understand. I turned to David. Thank you for handling this professionally. Of course, Ms. Thompson. Will you be staying for your usual afternoon tea? Not today, I said. But please put their lunch on my account. Wait. Claire called as I walked toward the door. Your engagement party. I stopped and turned back. Send me an invitation. If you want me there as your sister, as someone you actually value, I'll consider coming. But if I'm just supposed to be decoration for your perfect event, save yourself the trouble. I walked out through the main entrance, my sneakers squeaking on the marble one last time. Behind me, I could hear the murmur of voices starting up again, phones undoubtedly capturing every moment for the society gossip networks. By tomorrow, everyone in my family's social circle would know the truth. My phone buzzed as I reached my Honda. A text from David. Your office sent over the quarterly reports. Membership is up 15% this quarter. The renovations you approved for the tennis courts are already attracting new applications. Well done, Ms. Thompson. I smiled and put the phone away. I'd bought the Madison Estate Country Club 3 years ago not as an investment, but as a gift to myself. A reminder that I'd succeeded on my own terms, built something real, created value that had nothing to do with my family's approval. The fact that my family had been using it all along, never knowing who actually owned it, was just irony. As I drove away, my phone rang. Claire. I let it go to voicemail. Then Mom called. Then Claire again. They'd call for weeks, I suspected. Apologizing, explaining, trying to rebuild what had been broken. Maybe they'd mean it. Maybe they'd really see me differently now. But I'd learned something important today. Their opinion of me had always been conditional. Conditional on my success looking the way they expected it to look, on my life fitting their definition of achievement, on my choices making sense to them. And I was done living conditionally. I had a data analysis firm to run, properties to manage, and a life that made me happy even if it didn't impress anyone. That was enough. As I merged onto the highway back to the city, I thought about my father. He'd built his membership at that club through hard work and determination, never quite fitting in with the old money crowd but earning their grudging respect. In his will, he'd left it to me with a simple note. For Emily, who never needed anyone's permission to be extraordinary. He'd known somehow what I'd face from the rest of the family. And he'd given me the tools to handle it. The membership stayed active because I wasn't my mother or my sister. I didn't measure worth in social standings or revenge. But the records would show the truth now, and that truth would follow them every time they used the club. They'd have to live with knowing that the daughter they'd dismissed, the sister they'd tried to remove, owned the very ground they walked on. That seemed like consequence enough.